I was born in Santiago de Cuba, which is the eastern end of the island, and that's also the area where Fidel Castro was in the mountains, and the revolution was beginning on the east end, and eventually it went across the country to Havana. So being in that area, you were starting to get exposed to what was taking place in the revolution. I remember as a young child, lights going out at night. I remember you would hear bombs going off. You would hear different types of warfare occurring. And I was 4 at that time and 3. Those are like the first memories I have. And it was really about being in a very unstable area. And you didn't know what it was, but you knew it was happening. Being in that area and being in that country, my parents wanted to take us out of that revolution, which was already there, and we moved to Miami in 1958 before the actual takeover by Castro in 1960. And I came to Miami in 1958. A funny story about that, in my mind as a child, I was thinking once I got on that airplane, I was going to be getting cotton candy from the window. And I couldn't open the windows, and I realized there was no cotton candy, and I was just flying through clouds. And that was a disappointment, but life can have disappointments. But that was a funny analogy for me going through these clouds that I thought I could eat. We landed in Miami. We lived in an area east of the Adrian Arch, on 2 blocks east of it, and that was an area at that time that had single-family homes. We would go to Sears. We would go to another store that was there where the Omni is that no longer exists, called Jordan Marsh. I was going to school in downtown Miami at a Catholic school called Jesu. The church is still there. The school isn't. And in those periods of time, kids would walk to school. We would take buses to school, and we were going maybe 6 or 7 blocks. And the first thing that I couldn't understand of what was going on in Miami was the issue of race and racism. I would see the black and white water fountains, the black and white bathrooms, and when you're that young, you haven't learned to be a racist, or you haven't learned what race is about. One incident that I remember was I was about 7 or 8 taking the bus home from school, and I got on the bus. There was an elderly black woman. The bus was full, and she got up to give me her seat. Growing up where you're supposed to let your elders sit and you don't take their seat on a bus or anywhere, the woman got up, wanted me to sit down. I said to her no. She got very concerned, and I realized she was getting nervous, and the bus driver stopped the bus. He came back, and he said, she needs to get up, you need to sit down. I honestly didn't understand what was going on, that this was because she was a black person and I wasn't. And blacks are supposed to give you their seat if you have to stand. And because I was raised differently, I wouldn't take the seat. And basically what ended up was the bus driver just asking me to get off the bus. And I didn't understand that. I remember coming home and telling my parents, and they basically said to me, well, remember, we're no longer in Cuba. Now you're living in America, and blacks in America are second-class citizens. You're in charge, not them. That's why you see signs that say black only, white only. When we're shopping downtown Miami, at all the stores, the fountains, the water, the bathroom, and I didn't really understand it, but I started processing it. And obviously, as we know today, that is a big part of American history.